Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of SportsBuzz. I'm your host, Morgan Miller, joined by my talented co-host, Ryan Leffler. Tonight, we're going to start things off with some recaps in Week 12 of the NFL. First, we brave the weather and head to Buffalo, where the Patriots and the Bills toughed it out on Monday Night Football. Score tied 0-0. Mac Jones tosses it back to Damian Harris, who takes off. He's on the 40, 30, 20, and he goes all the way. Pats take the lead. Later in the first, Josh Allen throws a missile to Gabriel Davis for a Buffalo touchdown. Pats up by 4 in the fourth. Allen drops back, slips, falls, recovers, and is sacked by the Patriots defense. The Bills then try for a 33-yard field goal, but the wind is a little too much for Tyler Bass as it's blown wide right. On a long fourth down, Allen drops back and looks into the end zone, but is nearly picked off by Miles Bryant. After a hard-fought battle in the wind and snow, Patriots come out on top. This game was one for the history books, where the Patriots were able to scrape out a win by out-rushing the Bills 229-99 and having Mac Jones go 2 for 3 for 19 passing yards. New England won its 7th consecutive game, improving to 6-0 on the road. The Bill Belichick-coached Pats also have a 2-win edge over the Bills in the AFC East standings.
We are elated to have our NFL analyst Morgan Miller join us for this segment. How are you doing today, Morgan?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. First question, how were the Dolphins able to stop Lamar Jackson?
Okay, so that's a super interesting question. The answer is a little bit complicated. So Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator from the Dolphins, was absolutely on fire. He used a combination of cover zero concepts to keep Jackson at bay. Jackson seemed completely thrown by the man coverage, and that gave the Dolphins that extra bump they needed to pull this one out. Now, Jackson was sacked 4 times by the Dolphins and pressured on 19 of his 53 dropbacks. Because of that pressure, the Dolphins also gave Jackson his first regular season red zone interception of his career. The Dolphins sent defensive backs blitzes on 24 of Jackson's dropbacks, which is the most he has seen in his entire career. Something also really interesting is that every time that Jackson has been pressured more than 15 times in a game, they've lost. So the 6-3 Ravens, all 3 of those losses come when he's been pressured 15 times or more. I'm not saying that's the key to beating him, but I am saying that that's a pretty good thing that maybe teams should look at for the rest of the season.
And second question, are the Patriots serious Super Bowl contenders?
Okay, so I think calling any team that's 6-4 a serious Super Bowl contender is a little bit crazy right now, but it is the Patriots. It is Bill Belichick, and I think that there are some things that we do need to look at. I mean, Mac Jones has finally found his footing, and there are a lot of people that think that this could be their next year. Opinions aside, there are facts. They're very physical out front. They can out-muscle a lot of the teams. They acquired the Pro Bowl tackle Trent Brown during the offseason, which has completely helped bolster them. And they've been rushing for over 140 yards in the past 4 straight games. They have great running backs now. And, I will say, let's play devil's advocate a little bit. 3 of those wins come from the Jets, the Panthers, and the Chargers. Are they a great team? Sure. Will they continue to win? I don't know. I think we got to just wait and see.
Final question. What is something different that Cam Newton can bring to the Panthers?
I love this pickup by the Panthers. I think that it was the perfect addition to the team that they needed. Obviously the fans love Cam. Having him back is going to be amazing. And now that Sam Darnold is out, they needed that leadership in that locker room. PJ Walker, who's great, went undefeated in the XFL, but having him and Cam split that time is going to help Walker develop his skills and propel him into an absolutely elite NFL quarterback. Not only is Cam going to bring that new energy, revitalize the team a little bit, he's also going to bring that swagger that we know from Cam. He's going to bring that back to the team, and technically, the Panthers still are, a playoff contender. So having that veteran back in the locker room, I think is just going to absolutely propel them to the next level.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Morgan.
Thank you. Welcome back to Sports Buzz. Last up tonight, me and Ryan are going to break down all of these crazy details going on with the 2021 MLB Lockout. Ryan, are you ready?
So ready.
All right, let's get into this. So the biggest thing that we have to take away is that the players want one thing and the owners want one thing, and neither of them are willing to sacrifice the other thing, and they are the complete opposite. So that thing is, the players want increased competitive balance tax thresholds. The owners want lower competitive balanced tax thresholds. So increase and lower, different.
Total opposites.
Total opposites. And neither of them are willing to compromise. So where do we go from there?
Somebody's got to make a move.
Someone has to make a move.
It's a bad look for the league just as a whole. It's the first work stoppage in 26, 27 years. It's
Exactly.
not a good look for the league.
Exactly. And what? We just came off of a shortened season because of COVID.
We did.
We just had fans back in the stands, and now
So
we're stuck.
potentially taken away again because we're stuck.
Yeah, and of course,
we're stuck in limbo.
There are other things, that the players want. So the players want reduced service time for free agency. They also want no draft pick compensation for free agent signings. Now, the owners want to expand the postseason field and changes to arbitration, right? So interesting things that both sides don't really want to compromise on, that they both feel that are very important to them, right? Obviously, pay is important. Teams have to make money, but players also have to make money. So it's that finding that compromise that it looks like right now they aren't willing to talk. And we were talking earlier, it's mid-March that they have to make that decision by?
The agreement has to be made by mid-March, and if that's not happening, we either get a shortened season or no season at all.
Yeah, so let's talk. How is this going to affect, the viewers at home, the players individually day-to-day basis?
Well, the players, first thing, it affects their families, number one, because these players, they can't sign anywhere if they're free agents. If they're potentially on the move, teams can't trade them.
They can't be traded. There's no trades can happen.
And they can't even access their own facilities.
Nope. So say someone just came to a new team. Max Scherzer, right? Just gets signed by the New York Mets, moves to New York, is here. He can't even go into the facility. He's moved his family here. Can't even go to the facility. And there's stories like this all over the place, right? But, there's all those things. The most interesting thing that we just heard about was the MLB, they took off all of the headshots of all of their players, right?
On MLB.com, I heard about that. Yeah, so MLB removed all the headshots of every single player from each team's roster on their website. And the players' response to this, get this, they took to their social medias and they made these faceless photos their own profile pictures.
I love it.
As a way to troll the league, saying somebody's got to get going somewhere.
Oh, it's so petty, but it's just one of those things where, again, no sides are willing to compromise, and that's awesome. And I love it. And who knows what's going to happen from here, but I think it's going to play out all over the place.
Yeah, it's up in the air. Somebody's got to be willing to make the first move. It just depends on which side's going to be willing to do it first.
Exactly.
Just a huge game of chicken.
Everyone, welcome back to SportsBuzz. Now that we've covered the NFL, let's head down to college football and check in on the teams in the hunt for the playoffs. In Tuscaloosa, reigning national champs Alabama took on 4-4 LSU. Beginning of the first, on a fourth down, LSU ran a trick play. Avery Adkins lobs the ball over the pack to Jack Mashburn, who runs it for a big first down. Score still 0-0. LSU quarterback Max Johnson connects to Brian Thompson Jr., who runs it in, putting LSU up by 7. Ending the second, running back Brian Robinson Jr. runs the ball in, tying the game at 7 apiece. Beginning of the third, Bryce Young drops back and airs it out, hitting Jameis Wilson for a long Alabama touchdown. 2:30 left in the game. LSU trying to come back. Johnson connects to Jack Beck for an LSU touchdown. Alabama keeps their national championship hopes alive as their third-ranked defense held off LSU for a 20-10 victory. Alabama quarterback and Heisman frontrunner Bryce Young had a stellar game, going 24 for 37 and passed for 302 yards. Despite their injuries and a 4-5 record, LSU's Coach O still felt like they had something to play for, saying, "I felt like we had something to lose because we had the game to lose, and that's important to us."
Now we are joined by our NFL specialist, Morgan Miller. How you doing, Morgan?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
We're happy to have you. We're just going to ask you a couple questions about the current state of the NFL. First questions. Who are some teams that should be concerned about making the playoffs?
So right now, I think there's a lot of teams that should be concerned about making the playoffs. There's 7 teams that get in now, and the playoff scene is kind of a mess. I'm going to focus on one team from the AFC and one team from the NFC. Now, in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a great defense, but are not as strong offensively as they once were. Quarterback Ben Roethlisberger is 39, and his decline is absolutely evident. In Week 12, he completed less than half of his passes, threw 2 interceptions, and got sacked 3 times. In my opinion, if they don't bench Big Ben, they're likely going to be left out of the playoffs. Now, moving to the NFC, the Saints, even though they're coached by one of the best minds with Sean Payton, and they have a great defense. They still have 3 major players that are out: Alvin Kamara, Ryan Ramczyk, and Trevor Armstead. Having them out is going to really, really, really impact them in the upcoming weeks. So they've dropped 4 games straight, and they just got knocked out of that 7th seed. And, I think that this is going to be a big problem for them. So I think that Sean Payton has to work on that cohesiveness of the team, and, maybe we'll see some improvement, but I'm not hopeful.
And following up with that, who are some teams that are on the rise right before the playoffs?
So same kind of thing. There are so many teams right now that could make the playoffs that are on that cusp, but I do think those 2 teams, the Colts and the Rams, I think very strongly that those 2 teams, they have a lot of good things with them. Starting with the Rams, they picked up Matthew Stafford. It's a great pickup for them. And they also just added Odell Beckham Jr., who seemingly is where he would like to be. Even if they're coming off of 3 losses, but they believe that they should have beaten the Titans and the 49ers. I think that Sean McVay, again, has to create that cohesion within the locker room. Now, moving to the AFC, the Colts, they have Jonathan Taylor, the NFL's current leader, and, having him with the rush and the pass offense doing great, it gives Nyheim Hines time to create some space that they need to extend those games. The running backs are being helped by one of the best and most dynamic offensive lines in the NFL in current years. So I think both those teams are teams that we should be watching in the upcoming weeks for the playoffs.
And I don't want to jump the gun here, but who is the early Super Bowl favorite?
Again, I think it's really, really, really early to be saying any team is a Super Bowl favorite. I think there's a lot of teams, like I said, that could make it there. But I think it's still the Bucs. The Bucs, they returned all 22 players that started last year in last year's Super Bowl. And I don't think that no team's ever done that. I don't think that you can say anything against that. They're definitely a team to watch. They brought back all their players, and we're talking about leadership. You can't talk about leadership higher than Tom Brady. The man is a legend. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. And having him in that driver's seat, it gives an advantage that most teams do not have. Now, again, there are a lot of teams that we should be looking at. I think that the Patriots are another team to be looking at. But you're putting up Mac Jones against Tom Brady. I'm going to take Tom Brady every time. That experience matters. Those players were all there last year. A year later, they're still there. I think that's the team to watch.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Can't wait to have you back.